It's fight week, Rob.
Is it?
It's fight week every week, Rob.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
this week, it's UFC Fight Night 1, 2, 6, Cowboy versus Medeiros. We're going to start it there. It's on Fox Sports. It's Sunday night.
Don't like that. I think you should expect next week we probably won't be talking much about this card because we do work on Mondays.
Yeah,
like
Sunday,
adults.
Very inconsiderate of the UFC. But Donald Cowboy Cerrone taking on Yancy Medeiros. We just said it, Rob, before we hit record today that, man, this is a big opportunity for Yancy. Big name.
Big name. Like,
Cowboy.
You could refer it back to the Darren Till one now. It's a little bit different because Darren Till was not almost unknown, but he wasn't as big of a star maybe as, say, Yancy Medeiros. Not that you'd call Yancy Medeiros the biggest star, but he's been around the UFC for a long time. I think at this point a lot more people know Yancy Medeiros than knew Till at that time. But, it's still a huge opportunity. Donald Cerrone's always a big opportunity.
Couple of questions. You can answer them. I just want to pose them to you.
Okie dokie.
Is it peculiar that Donald Cowboy Cerrone is currently on a 3-fight loss streak and Yancy Medeiros is on a 3-fight win streak and these are matched?
Yes. Yeah. Yes and no. I suppose when you compare the names, Cerrone's a bigger name. So I think in certain cases, they're not going to offer a guy on a big win streak a guy on a big loss streak. But it's different when you have a guy like Donald Cerrone with that name. Maybe you don't want to approach somebody and say, oh, this guy's on a huge loss streak. And them to say, oh, wait, I want somebody on a bigger win streak. But then when you say, well, it's Cowboy Cerrone, you're going to take it. So I don't think it's that strange. But yeah, a little bit.
Part 2 of the question.
Okay.
After Yancy Medeiros fought Alex Oliveira, it was on the 2nd of December in what a lot of people put up there as fight of their year. Is it too quick of a turnaround for Yancy after such a hard-fought fight? He was nearly out of there.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that one. 2 months.
It's a quick turnaround.
That's a quick turnaround.
For the style of fight that it was.
For the style of fight and the damage that Yancy took, I'd say, that's a quick turnaround. Yeah, I think that's a quick turnaround. I don't think it's going to affect him hugely, but you never know. Realistically, he probably had a bit of a suspension. So I'm not sure what his timelines of actual training was. Who knows? But yeah, that is quick. Actually, I never thought about that.
And now, what do you actually think of the fight? Where do you see this being won? And because obviously Cowboy, as we were saying, 3 fights in the hole. He's in trouble. I don't think Cowboy's the type. Look, Ross Pearson at the weekend was on a 4-fight loss streak. More so, I don't think Donald Cowboy Cerrone would be close to walking papers for what he's done. But surely he is on a tightrope here.
It's a weird one. It's crazy to see Donald Cerrone at that stage, but he's that type of guy who took all comers that it was probably always going to happen that he was going to go on a streak like this, I don't think he's done. I think what happened with Darren Till was just a display of how good Darren Till is as well. You can certainly say Cerrone's slowing down. Like, the amount of fights that Cerrone has, although he's not the oldest guy in the division, he's getting up there. But then in fight years, he's had so many fights that you have to say that in MMA years, he's definitely up there. So I don't think it's that much of a surprise that he's on that run, just considering the type of guy he is. He is a cowboy. That's who he is. But yeah,
2 of his 3 defeats have been knockouts.
Yeah,
TKOs are knockouts.
Yeah, that's not a good one. But again, look at the guys who he's fighting as well.
Yeah, that's very true. But again, I'm really playing devil's advocate today. Yancy Medeiros' wild come forward style, is that suited to Cowboy, or do you see that Yancy could bully Cowboy the way he's been bullied before?
Possibly. Yancy doesn't really fight that bullying style. He's a guy who will get into a scrap with other guys, but he's not the type of person who will get on top and really put it on his opponent. He's the type of guy who will allow his opponent to get into the fight and look for counters and kind of survive that kind of war. So I'm not sure. I think it does play into Donald Cerrone's style. I think he'll like this type of fight. Someone's going to come forward and look to finish him. But it's a weird one because Yancy, if you look at that fight against Alex Oliveira, there could have been moments there where Yancy could have got finished. Yeah. And he does leave openings, but so does Cerrone. But I'll be interested to see how Donald Cerrone can capitalise on the kind of openings that he does leave, because I don't think Alex Oliveira had the skill to capitalise on them.
What do you think as well, again, just thinking off the cuff as I'm talking to you, how big of a knock on Yancy's camp is it that Holloway's injured?
That's huge, yeah. He seems to be one of his biggest training partners. I know they're weight-wise, they're quite off, but
Yeah.
he's sitting like technique wise and learning. That's definitely. I'm sure he's there. I'm not sure what the extent of his injury. Maybe he can work out a little bit. And he's been obviously working out leading up to this because Holloway got injured a month back or so, maybe a little bit less than that. So yeah, it's still a knock. I wonder where Yancey's training, because I know Yancey trains between the Diaz brothers and there as well. So it'd be interesting to see where's Donald Cerrone training.
Could you be right as well and say, he's on the farm, isn't he, or whatever?
Yeah,
but
because
it's interesting, isn't it? You got Cowboy who's sort of coming down from the high of what he's doing. Their arcs are meeting.
Yeah,
Yancey Medeiros is ascending. For me, this is a fight. I think Yancey's style here of not, his gritness could lead him to survive what Cowboy can offer, but at the same time, a flip of the coin, I think his style plays into Cowboy. I think Yancey will let Donald Cowboy Cerrone control the tempo, and that's where Cowboy is at his best, when he's allowed lead the dance.
Yeah.
And if Yancey, I'd hope to think he's obviously, he's clearly done study of his last few fights. Donald Cowboy Cerrone's like Cowboy Cerrone's fight against Lawler was an excellent fight. Like, he was on the end of a decision defeat, but he fought well. Darren Till bullied him, pushed forward. He controlled the pace. Jorge Masvidal done the same thing. He controlled where the fight took place. RDA going back, he just bull rushed Cowboy and absolutely destroyed him like that. So, the blueprint is there, and as Robin Black would always say, if I know this, Medeiros knows this. So there's that. So in a way, for him, his way of winning this fight is to be the aggressive one, to come forward. I don't know, I'm not too sure with their actual heights. I haven't looked at the stats, but Medeiros looks like just a much bigger man for me.
Yeah, well, they're both coming up from lightweight as well. Not immediate fights, but I mean, they've both fought at lightweight before. But Medeiros does seem like he's way more well suited to welterweight than Cerrone is. Cerrone is very good at welterweight, and I think naturally that's probably his best weight class, because he does kill himself a little bit to get down to lightweight, and you can see it at the weigh-ins, and you can see it in his performance sometimes. But I think in terms of being able to compete with the bigger guys in the division, I think Yancey Medeiros is probably more well suited. His frame seems bigger. He seems like he's just a bigger man, as you said. But I also think momentum and mindset is something that you have to think into this one, because when you brought up the whole loss streak, win streak, where's Donald Cerrone at mentally? Like, he's taken a couple of losses, whereas Yancey Medeiros is probably on the best streak of his career at the moment.
Yeah.
He's moved to welterweight. He hasn't lost at welterweight so far since he's moved back up.
And he's beating good names
up there. Whereas Donald Cerrone, he's on a bit of a skid, and how is he going to deal with that mentally? And you have the two guys on two kind of different trajectories going into this one. So that'll be interesting, the mental game. Like, if Yancey gets hurt early, maybe he'll be able to stay in it mentally, but will Donald Cerrone be able to stay on it mentally? That's something that people have criticised Cerrone about. So that's an interesting matchup as well.
And if I had to push the pick, Robert?
I'm gonna go with Yancey. I'm gonna go with Yancey Medeiros. I was leaning towards Donald Cerrone for the whole kind of lead up to this, but I just think that if Donald Cerrone hurts him early, which he could, based on Yancey's last couple of fights, he's been able to stay in there and take a shot. Cerrone, not so much in his last couple of fights. So I think if it gets into that kind of scrap, I just think Yancey Medeiros is going to be able to stay in there a little bit longer. But if this was a couple of fights ago, before Cerrone lost, I think we have a different fight in our hands. I think you're going to pick Cerrone all day. So based on just current form, based on the last couple of fights, I'm going to go with Yancey Medeiros to get something. I'm going to go with that Yancey Medeiros. I don't know what.
You're really undecided in this.
Yeah, really am. Because they're very well matched. Really, really well matched. I think Cerrone, technically, skill-wise, I think is a little bit better. Even defensively, I think Yancey Medeiros does leave himself open a little bit more than Donald Cerrone, but I think Yancey Medeiros just can outlast him a little bit more. I think his chin is there a little bit more. I think his endurance is there a little bit more.
So I have the same dilemma as you.
Yeah.
That if we were picking this fight a couple of years ago, it's Cowboy.
Even last year, probably.
Yeah, it's Cowboy. But I don't know. It is interesting to see how much Cowboy is in Jack's wink anymore. You know what I mean? He seems to have gone away from that, and he's up in
his ranch.
I knew it wasn't farm. I knew it was a different version of farm. But yeah, it's. I gotta say, I'm siding with Yancey on this as well, with momentum and the style of fights, how he's won fights, but more so not how he's won, how Cowboy has lost his last couple of fights is what is swinging me. So yeah, I'm going with Yancey Medeiros as well, and I'm gonna go Yancey with a late stoppage.
Yeah,
it's a main event, so actually I'm gonna go like round 3. Yancey Medeiros.
Yeah, it's a weird one because
not even late because it's a 5-rounder.
It's the type of fight that a couple of years ago you really would fancy Donald against. You know, the type of fighter, somebody's going to come forward and
and he leaves open. Yancey leaves open.
Not coming forward is how you beat Donald Cerrone in ways. You be aggressive, but coming forward and leaving openings is when Donald Cerrone can do.
But
look,
do a lot
the
of good thing work with this is, and this sounds like I'm hedging here, but like Cowboy could come out and look fantastic in this fight.
Yeah,
and the whole thing we've talked about, we've mentioned this a good few times on all the podcasts you ever listen back, is levels of MMA.
Yeah,
and I think a year ago, I don't think it'd be wouldn't be unkind to say, I don't think Yancey Medeiros a year ago, you would have put him in a cage with Cowboy. You would have thought, what's this match about? This is crazy. Right now it is. This is the perfect fight. Yeah. This is Yancey Medeiros. Yancey Medeiros gets a victory over Cowboy Cerrone. This propels him. So from that sense, it makes sense. So 2 picks on Yancey.
Even though he's not training right now with Holloway, the morale in that camp right now has to be amazing, absolutely amazing. I know that Holloway recently fell out, so that's going to be a bit of a bump, but just in general the morale has to be amazing.
Your main event, our co-main event, sees the Black Beast Derrick Lewis return, taking on Marcin Tybura. Black Beast, his last outing, exhaustion is what sort of cost him the fight, and he's my thing on this, I'll say it straight out there, Derrick Lewis suffers with a horrendously bad back. Yeah. A heavyweight that does that. Looking at his last fight for me, what I seen watching Derrick Lewis was, this was a guy who was trying to get the fight over and done as quick as he possibly could, because he just didn't. He was in pain. He didn't have it in the gas tank. Yeah. And then against Fabricio, he was due to fight, and it was his back as well, wasn't it? Yeah. So his last fight then, Mark Hunt finished him in the 4th round. I thought he'd done exceptionally well to even get to the 4th round. So for me, it's how is Derrick Lewis's back? Could he train regularly? Could he train hard to the level that you have to train at to be in the UFC? Yeah. That for me is the who's wins this fight. Like, I think a fit Derrick Lewis wins this fight hands down every time. Okay. But is it a fit Derrick Lewis? So this for me, my pick, I'll say it now, is Derrick Lewis. Okay. But it's Derrick Lewis with an exclamation. No, with an asterisk. If
an exclamation mark.
I really mean it. Yeah. An exclamation mark. No, an asterisk. Yeah. With an asterisk beside it, because the simple fact is he injury free? I know all fighters say you'll never go fully fit, but I mean to the extent that he looked hindered, incredibly hindered in his last bout. He did. If he comes out and he's fully fit, I'm picking Derrick Lewis all day, and he'll make it a short night. But if not, you gotta fear for him. Yeah, I'm kind of on the same thought process as you. One thing I do like about Marcin Tybura, and why I think it's gonna give Derrick Lewis some problems, not to mention that, as you said, Derrick Lewis has had terrible back issues. He's retired from back issues. He said he retired a while ago, came back and said his back feels okay, but he had to pull out after that, was it? Yeah. He's had issues after he came out of retirement. So, you just don't fix back pain like that. If you say, you wish you could. But if you have terrible back pain, and not just back pain, back injuries, that's awful. That's some of the worst injuries you can have, especially for an athlete. A heavyweight as well.
Yeah, heavyweight as well.
These big guys laying on you.
One thing I like about Marcin Tybura is he's not the biggest heavyweight, but he still hits hard. But he's really good in his feet, as in he moves really well in his feet. He likes to work behind his jab. He has some good kicks, and he has some decent endurance. He got tired in his last fight against Verdum, but he went 5 rounds with Fabricio Verdum, which isn't an easy thing to do. Fabricio Verdum doesn't have the best gas tank in the world, but it's fairly good. And you can see against guys like Cain Velasquez, and of course you can say it wasn't C-level Cain, but you could see against him how good Fabricio's gas tank is. And Fabricio kind of fought his own fight there, although it wasn't much of a grappling fight. It fought at Fabricio's range, really, and Tybura stayed in there, and he looked pretty good. I just think that Derrick Lewis, unless he gets it done early, whereas Tybura has a decent chin, I'm not sure if that's the most likely of options. Yeah. I think Derrick is going to have a problem with cardio. I think Tybura is going to be able to finish him. I think he's going to be able to finish him maybe in the second or third when Lewis gets hurt and tired. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Marcin Tybura.
Nice. When we disagree, see, we don't always agree, folks. Next up on the UFC website, as in line, it's a little different to other websites, Tapology, but let's go with the UFC since the fights are on the UFC. We got James Vick taking on Francisco Ronaldo Robert. This is 12 against 14.
Yeah, this is a weird one because I read both of these guys very wrong in the same way at times. James Vick, when he was on Tough, I think I watched that season of Tough, crazy enough.
You're a big fan, Rob.
I'm a big fan. He looked like a decent striker, but he didn't really seem that great. But since then, he's gone on a very, very good run. He's beat a lot of good guys. Ronaldo, another guy, he's an older fighter, got into the UFC, and if you look at his record, I'm going to just pull up his record here for a second. His only losses in the UFC recently is to Kevin Lee.
Yeah, before that it was
Mike Chiesa in 2014, a long time ago. And he's beat some really good guys. Norman Park in there, Ross Pearson in there, Yancy
Norman
Medeiros.
Park is questionable.
Paul Felder is in there. And his last fight was Jim Miller, and Jim Miller's obviously getting up there in age, but he's really...
But you look at it, main event, Yancy Medeiros, he's beating Yancy Medeiros, Paul Felder, and then he dropped the fight to Kevin Lee. So he wins that fight to Kevin Lee, he might have been fighting for the title. Yeah,
and again, you can look at some of them fights, they were in Brazil, some of them were decisions, some of them were a little bit questionable, but he's won the fights.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Just a little bit questionable. So he's a really good guy in that division, but he's kind of flying under the radar. James Vick has made huge improvements, and I think a lot of people, I don't know about you, and you can let me know, are looking at him as a bit of a prospect at that division.
James Vick, to echo what you just said, these two lads fighting they should call it the underestimated matchup.
Yeah.
I have so underestimated James Vick and Ronaldo. Like Ronaldo, I just always he robbed Norman Park of a victory, and I've held that with me dear. That's what, I don't know why, but that's what I've held on to about it. But when you look at his record, when you look at who he's beaten, how he's beaten them, incredibly impressive. Same goes with James Vick. Vick for me always looked like almost the awkward fighter or something.
Really awkward,
awkward style, and he'd pull out a win and you're going, where did he get that win from? But then he beat Joe Duffy there not too long,
knockout, and it was lovely.
Yeah, it was a beautiful finish. So
I don't think anybody was picking him against Joe Duffy either. And that's not even the Irish thing. That was just a lot of people I saw was picking Joe Duffy in that fight.
Yeah. So it is for me. It's two fighters that I've always underestimated. So I'm gonna underestimate one of them again. And for me, it's James Vick here. I thought he looked incredibly impressive in his last outing against Joe Duffy. But also he is on a bit of a roll, a bit of a purple patch as well. Beating Paulo Reyes and Ronaldo.
Who are you talking about?
It'll come to me later. I can't think of his name. Trujillo. People are shouting.
Trujillo.
Yes.
Abel Trujillo.
Yeah, beat him. So he's on a good win streak. Again, I could be just underestimating Ronaldo. Maybe youth is a thing here for me. I think Vick is... I think Vick's about 29. Is he 29, 30? And Ronaldo...
He's up there.
He looks old. He looks older than he actually is, I think. Let me have a look at that. Ronaldo, 39.
Yeah.
He is the oldest looking 39-year-old I've ever seen. But he is...
He's good.
He's legit. Yeah, he is legit.
Good.
But I'm going to go with the Texecutioner.
Okay.
James Vick.
Is this fight in Brazil? It's not.
No.
Okay, I'm going with James Vick. No, I'm actually going with James Vick.
Texas.
There's a couple of things. James Vick his striking has improved so much. When he came into the UFC, when he was in Tough, he fought very in my opinion, Stefan Struve. He was the taller guy who fought behind his jab at times, but didn't really. And recently he has, and if you look at how he dismantled Joe Duffy, very, very impressive. The reach is probably, I think he has a 6-inch reach advantage on Ronaldo. And Ronaldo is a good kickboxer, but he's a good kickboxer when he can get range. I don't think he's going to get range on James Vick. I think James Vick has got really, really well, got really, really better in his stand-up game. Takedowns, again, he's got much better defending takedowns. He actually has a couple of takedowns in his belt, if you want to call it that. So I'm going to go with James Vick. I think if it was in Brazil and it was a close fight, You know, I might lean towards Ronaldo, but I'm going to go with James Vick. I'm going to say a decision, but...
Love Brazil.
Very nice. I'm going to say a decision, but it wouldn't surprise me if he finished him, and I think Ronaldo has to slow down eventually.
That old man genes. Super Sage Northcutt makes a return to the octagon. He's taken on Tybura Guti. I was super impressed, excuse the pun,
Nice.
of Sage Northcutt in his last outing. Of course, he's now training out of Team Alpha Male. Mr. Faber knows all about him. But I was very impressed with Sage's last win. It was a unanimous decision, didn't get a finish, but he looked fantastic.
Yeah.
He was mixing up his takedowns with his striking beautifully as well. He's going to have a guillotine on him, that's for sure, now that he's training out of Alpha Male. And I think in some ways as well, Rob, a lot of the pressure has come off Sage Northcutt. That Mickey Gall defeat in some ways is going to be such a blessing in disguise and for Sage Northcutt, because there was so much hype behind him after Dana White looking for a fight. That there still is, obviously, like it's Sage Northcutt, but he's finished school now, so he was still in school like when all this was happening. So he's finished school.
Made the move to Alpha Male.
He's made the move to Alpha Male. So I think this is where right now, like, he has all the natural abilities that you could possibly want, and what's happening now is he's gone into Alpha Male as this dry sponge, and they're a big swimming pool of knowledge, and he's going in there and he's soaking it up every day, and I think you're going to see leaps and bounds from Sage Northcutt from now on every time you see him. So I'm going to go Sage Northcutt, and I'm going to go Sage Northcutt finish.
Well, very good.
Submission.
Very good.
He's going to add a new wrinkle to the game.
Nice.
Just out of Alpha Male, I just think he's going to be training with them little terriers.
I love the move to Alpha Male because Sage Northcutt, he's not the world's best striker, but coming from that kind of point karate background, he has some great fundamentals in that way. He has a good sense of range. But I think moving to Alpha Male and training with those crazy good wrestlers and grapplers and submission fighters is going to do just the world of good to his game. I think being it, because one of the things, if you look at his previous fights, one of the things that he had issues with was he got caught on the ground underneath and he didn't really know what to do from there. When you're in there with guys day in, day out that are wrestlers and are built to be able to keep you down, hold you down, keep position, and you're working on that every day, which I'm assuming he is, because Uriah Faber is not an idiot. He's going to be, pushing him through what he needs to be going through. I think that's going to do wonders to his game. I think as well with Guti, whatever way you want to say it, if you look at his previous fights and look at who he's lost to, he usually loses to guys who are really good in a certain aspect of the game. Like Chad Lepre is really good kickboxer and he lost by knockout. Olivier Aubin Mercier, really good submission guy, lost by submission. I think in this one, Sage Northcutt is going to be able to be too dynamic on the feet. He's going to stuff any takedowns. Guti likes to strike for the most part, but he will look for takedowns. He's kind of for me, he's a real all-rounder. He's good everywhere. He's not great anywhere really. So I think Sage Northcutt's going to be able to keep it on the feet and just be a little bit faster, a little bit more dynamic on the feet. And, maybe he could get a submission, drop him, but I don't think he's going to go for a takedown. I think he's going to keep it on the feet and strike with him. Sage Northcutt.
Quickly, because time is of the essence. Your opening card, or opening bout on the main event, I believe, are the UFC still saying that as well? Yeah, is Thiago Alves versus Curtis Millander. This is where you look at Thiago was due to fight Mike Perry. There was travel issues. Remember what happened that you couldn't travel in the States? Something happened.
I'm not sure.
There was like storms and shit, wasn't
it? Yeah.
So he couldn't travel to fight Mike Perry. Then Zach Cummins got injured against him. Got injured in the build-up. Slipped in the fucking bathtub or something, didn't he? Jesus, unlucky Zach Cummins. So Curtis Millander is his third opponent and his third camp. Maybe not full camp because it's only a month after the Zach Cummins fight. But this gun guy, Curtis Millander, he's a champion and former in other promotions outside of the UFC. He's making his UFC debut. He fighting the Lion Fighting Championships, I presume. He was the champion out of there. He's plenty of knockout finishes, KO finishes. He's gone the distance. He's lost a couple, but this is where you would just say, levels in MMA. Can this kid roll with Thiago Alves, somebody who climbed to the top and had a title shot? Will he have to do that, or will he have to hang with a new young blood? That's the question.
Yeah, it's a big question. I didn't get to see a whole lot on Millander. I tried to find footage of some out there, but I'm gonna go with, just because we're short on time, I'm gonna go with the levels. I think against Patrick Cote in his last fight, he looked really good. Again, another huge break for Thiago Alves, as you said. But I just think coming into the UFC, maybe he'll have them UFC jitters, maybe not. But coming into the UFC, this is a big task for him. He hasn't fought anybody at the level of Thiago Alves. And again, that's not saying that he can't beat him. It really isn't. You know, he could be on that level. But it's hard to predict that he's going to be at that level. He's had some good wins. He had some great finishes. But I just think Thiago Alves, a little bit too much. I think he's going to be able to beat him. Maybe a finish, but I'm going to go with decision.
Perfect. That's the main card.